Yeah.
Sometimes I get a bit confused, about at the moment, I try to focus on the two-armed form, but then there was the that appear to Arjuna.
Yes.
But then there's the Ashtanga yoga, like focusing on the Paramatma, and then there's Krishna everywhere, and then there's universal form. So
Brahman, yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
sometimes I get a little confused.
There's
But I've
Brahman
just
and
focusing on the
Paramatma.
two.
Yeah,
Who to focus on, which form to focus on.
You've already been focusing on Krishna, so that's the highest. That's the highest aspect of the absolute truth. First aspect of God is Brahman, the all-pervading aspect. Then the second aspect is Paramatma, and the third is Bhagavan, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Supreme Personality of Godhead is the highest and the source of all the others. So once you've already have a realization of Bhagavan or Krishna, there's no need to leave that to go to Brahman or Paramatma. Yeah, that's the ultimate. Krishna realization of Krishna is the ultimate in God realization. See, some people have only realized Brahman. That's as far as they've got. They don't know anything about Paramatma. They don't know anything about Krishna. And then some people have realized Paramatma. So that includes realization of Brahman. But they don't know anything about Krishna. And in those that have realized Krishna, then they automatically included within that is realization of Paramatma and Brahman, the all-pervading. So everything's included. If you're worshipping and meditating on Krishna, then included within Krishna is the Paramatma, the super soul, and Brahman. So there's no need to think about anything else other than Krishna. And someone that knows Krishna has full knowledge. They have full knowledge, so automatically we know about the all-pervading energy that comes from Krishna's body, which is Brahman, and we know that he expands into the heart of every living entity as Paramatma. So that knowledge is we have that automatically is there. But the primary focus of our heart will be Krishna, because the meaning of Krishna, what is that? It's all attractive. Krishna is so attractive, so beautiful, so attractive. We don't say that Brahman is all attractive, do we?
No.
No one says, oh, the Brahman is so attractive. It's just energy. There's nothing attractive there. Of course, the attraction to the Brahman is there's no suffering there. If you can get the soul out of the material world and enter into the Brahman, where you've got free from suffering. So that's very good. There's nothing negative there, but there's nothing positive either. You don't have a relationship with Brahman. Have you ever heard anyone say, I got such a wonderful relationship with the Brahman? I have a loving relationship with the Brahman. No, it's just energy. So there's no form there. You can't have a relationship with the Brahman. So the ultimate relationship is with Krishna. He's so attractive. He's so beautiful and so powerful and so knowledgeable and so famous and so renounced. And he has the 6 opulences of God in full. That's Krishna. So some
also means that everything, all the elements that the material world's made up of. So you talk about nature as well, though, aren't you?
The material world's made of elements. You're saying that's nature. Yeah, what's the question?
Isn't that Brahman as well?
Yeah. Everything is resting on Brahman.
Because a lot of people do sort of have this relationship with nature as well, and that's like their realization of.
Yeah, but see, nature has a form, like trees and the water and the animals and the birds and everything like that. But that all those different forms are resting on an all-pervading energy on the Brahman. So that's the background behind nature. But so we can have a relationship with the birds and the beasts, but you can't really have a relationship with the Brahman. But that's like the foundation of nature. This what's supporting nature is that there's an energy, an all-pervading energy, and that Brahman energy is within the cows and the sheep and the birds and the fish and the trees and everything like that. That all-pervading energy is there. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. So like I said, chapter 6, text 7. 7? Oh no, or 6 is it? 6, let's have a look. The mind is the enemy as well. 6, I think today's 6, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
We've been hovering around 4 and 5.
Yes. So we're on 6 today. Okay, so let's read the verse. Bandhuratmanastasya
Bandhuratmanasya
yenatma evatmanajita
Yenaitva maivatnama
anatmanastu shatrutve
Anastamastu Shatrutve
vatenatmaiva shatruvat.
Vatet Atmai Shatruva.
We'll do it once more. Bandhuratmana hang on. Bandhuratmanastasya
Bandhuratmanasya
yenatmaivatmanajita
Yena Tvamevatnama
anatmanastu shatrutve
Anatmanastu Shatruve
vatenatmaiva shatruvat.
Vatenatatme Shatruvat.
Well, this one's quite a tongue twister with all the atmas in it. Atmatmanas. There's so many. Look how many times. How many times you count atma in this verse? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. And the last week's verse was 7 times the word atma. And remember, atma means what? What is the meaning of atma?
The soul.
It can mean the soul, yes. What else can it mean? It can mean 3 things. Remember, in last week's purport, Prabhupada said Atma can refer to 3 things. So the soul is 1. Bob has got 1. The mind, yes. And it can mean the body. So Atma means the self. So the self could refer to the bodily self, or the mental self, or the spiritual self. So in this context, because this subject is talking about yoga, in this particular context of yoga, when the word Atma is used, it's referring to the mind. Because the main purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind. Remember that. Whether you're talking about karma yoga or jnana yoga or Ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga, the foundation of that yoga system is you have to control the mind. Why do we have to control the mind? Why is that so fundamental, so essential, and a spiritual path? Control the mind.
Because of because it needs to be purified because it's subject to influence by all our senses, which are imperfect.
Yeah. Yes, needs to be purified. So at the moment, the mind is very entangled with the senses. So through the senses, we're very attracted to the external world, like Bhakti Mala mentioned nature. So we're very attracted to this material nature, which we're experiencing material nature through our senses. And all of those things that is coming through our senses goes into the mind. And the mind's very attracted to that, all those external things. And because the mind is so attracted to this external world through our senses, what happens to our spiritual realization?
Well, it goes.
Nothing happens.
No.
Because we're so externally focused, the mind is so absorbed in all the external world, which is through our eyes and our ears and our nose and our tongue and everything, that we've completely turned away from our internal world, from the spiritual world, from our relationship with God in our heart and God in the spiritual world and the soul that's in our heart. We've completely lost track of that. So
material realization instead of spiritual realization.
yeah. So if you want to get spiritual realization, what's the first thing you have to do?
Control your mind.
You have to control your mind. There's no question of spiritual realization without controlling the mind, because the mind's lost with the external material world of sense gratification, trying to gratify the senses. So that's become the primary goal. And for the soul in illusion, is the primary goal is to try to enjoy this external world. And we do that. How do we enjoy the world? Is through the mind and the senses. And which teams up with, what is the mind teaming up with, which Prabhupada mentioned, and last week we discussed, last week's purport. The mind teams up with one other element of our subtle body. I gave you a clue. See, the mind is part of the subtle body. So the subtle body is made up of three elements. So the mind teams up with another of those elements of the subtle body to keep us bewildered in the material world. So what is the mind teaming up with to keep us in ignorance?
Ego.
Yes. Well, not
The false ego.
to be more exact, false ego, false self. There's the real self and the false self, false ego and the real ego. So what's the false ego? What's the false self? I am the
Body.
What's the real ego? I am the
Spirit soul.
spirit soul, who is a
Part and parcel of Krishna.
part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore, as a part and parcel, what's our purpose?
To please Krishna and offer.
Please Krishna. Like your hand is part of your body, what's its purpose?
To serve the body.
To serve the body. Right. So the purpose of the part is to serve the whole. So we're part of God, therefore our purpose is to serve God and to please Him. And by doing that, when the part serves the whole, what does the part get out of it?
It's
when
benefit.
your hand surrenders the food into the body through the mouth, then what does it get out of it?
Part get nourished.
Yeah, the part gets nourished. The part gets everything it needs. You just got to, your purpose is to give it to the whole. Once you give it to the whole, then the whole distributes it to all the parts.
It's what are the roots?
Yeah, and the example's given. Very good. Gulshan's remembered that one. that when you water the root of the tree, then the root distributes it to all the leaves and the fruits and the flowers and everything like that. When you put the food in the stomach, then that food automatically goes to the legs and the arms and the head and every part of the body. So it's like that. So yeah, Atma. So in this context, Atma refers to the mind. We have to control the mind. It doesn't matter what yoga system you're following. That's the fundamental thing. And if you're following some yoga practice and there's no controlling the mind in that process, then it's not a bona fide process. Like a lot of modern day yogis, they think, oh, you eat whatever you like, sleep whatever you like, have sex whatever you like. It doesn't matter. Talk whatever you like. There's no kind of control system there. Well, that's not genuine, because it's very essential. There should be some control of the mind. Okay, so let's read the translation. Who's ready to read the translation?
For him who has conquered the mind, and the mind is the best friend, but the one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
And remember, this is connected with last week's verse. So let's read last week's verse, text 5. Bob, do you want to read that one?
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
Okay. So one mind, but it can have two completely opposite effects on us. The mind can be the cause of delivering us, in which case it's our friend, and the mind can be a cause of degrading ourselves. In that case, it's our enemy. The same mind, but depending how you use it. And it's the same with anything, right? Is a knife good or bad?
Well, it depends what you're using. In the
depends how
kitchen,
you use
good.
it, right?
And then the one your friend was the Kiwi friend, he killed his wife. So bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that was his enemy. So a knife in the hand of a doctor can save your life, and the knife in the hand of a criminal can take your life. So is money good or bad?
If you're using the Krishna conscience, good.
If you use it for some good purpose, it's, to print Bhagavad Gitas or to build a temple or to feed poor people prasadam or something like that, then that's very good. But if you take it to the casino, it's very bad. It's going to spoil your life. If you take it to the casino or you get involved in buying drugs with it, use it to, a lot of people use money, to buy drugs, and that's their enemy. That money is their enemy. It's destroying their life like that. So everything can be like that. It can be our friend or it can be our enemy, depending how you use it. So the mind is the same way. And this verse is taking it another step further. Okay, so the mind can either deliver us, it's our friend, or it can degrade us, it's our enemy. So this verse takes a step further. If you conquer the mind, then it's your friend. Okay, so the previous verse says it can be your friend or it can be your enemy. So when is it your friend? It's your friend when you conquer it, when you control it. Then it's your best friend. And if you don't control it, then it's your enemy. You see? The previous verse said the mind can deliver you and be your friend, or it can degrade you and be your enemy. So this verse is telling us when it's your friend and when it's your enemy. It's your friend when you conquer it, when you control it, and it's your enemy when you don't control it. Okay, so Bhakti Mala, you'd like to start reading the purport, please?
The purpose of practicing faithful devotion to control the mind and to make it the friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind always lives with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of a living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice,
Yeah, avarice means greed. Mm.
delusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated in the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart, then following his dictation. The one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically.
Wow. That's far out, isn't it? That sentence where Prabhupada says, real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. Put up your hands if you'd like that, to meet the Paramatma in the heart. Well, that's far out. And there's many historic cases of that happening where great yogis in devotion have met the Paramatma in the heart. There's nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. If that happens, your seeker will be standing on end. You just be completely in bliss. And that you can, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have the historic story of Dhruva Maharaj, where he was practicing Ashtanga yoga and he was seeing the Paramatma in his heart, in his meditative trance called Samadhi. He was seeing Paramatma in the heart. And then at one point he couldn't see Paramatma anymore. And that completely disturbed him, that he'd lost this most beautiful vision in his whole life, this most beautiful form of Paramatma. He lost that vision. And then in shock, he opened up his eyes. When he opened up his eyes, do you know what he saw outside of himself? The same form that he saw in his heart, Paramatma, with 4 arms, Vishnu form, he saw standing outside of himself.
Wow.
Paramatma had come outside. And then his ecstasy just went off the Richter scale. And he was in so much bliss. And he was only 5 years old at that time. So much bliss. And then he was so stunned, and he was only 5 years old, so his vocabulary wasn't so developed. As usually a 5-year-old, right? Their vocabulary is not so brilliant for offering nice prayers and so forth. But he had that desire to glorify the Lord, but his body and his mind weren't so developed to be able to glorify him properly. But he had that strong desire, and the Lord knew that. So he took the conch shell, that conch shell, like the priests, the pujaris in the temple blow that conch shell, boom, at the beginning and end of the arati. So that's one of the symbols of Vishnu that he carries in one of his 4 arms. So with that conch shell, he lightly touched it to his head. And as soon as he was touched by the Lord, then all this beautiful poetry came out of his mouth. All this beautiful poetry. His mouth, yeah, really lovely. Let's see if I can remember one. No, I was just trying to remember one of his prayers, so I can't remember. I need the Lord to go and tap me on the head so I can speak nicely. And but so many beautiful prayers. One of the prayers he said was that, I remember in English, is that O my Lord, previously I had performed great austerities for the purpose of achieving a great kingdom, more than any of my ancestors. But now that I've seen you, I realize that it's all like pieces of broken glass. Because now, seeing you, you are like a beautiful jewel. You are like a beautiful jewel. And everything else before that I was running after was just like bits of broken glass. And now seeing you, I'm completely satisfied and I don't want anything. Because previously he'd wanted a great kingdom. But after he saw the Lord, he was so happy, so satisfied. He didn't want a kingdom anymore. He didn't want anything. He didn't want wealth. He didn't want women. He didn't want a kingdom. He didn't want a big position. He was completely satisfied just to see Krishna. There's so much satisfaction just in seeing God and seeing Krishna that if one can have that good fortune, then there's nothing more than that. One doesn't care about anything at that point. Of course, before we get that real satisfaction, self-satisfaction, we're running after so many things, isn't it? Day and night we see in the cities all over the world, people are running, isn't it? Day and night. Where is money? Where is money? Where is sex? Where is a partner? Where is food? Where are so many things? Where is a house? You know, we're running around madly after so many material things. But after one realizes his loving relationship with the Lord, then one doesn't want any of those things anymore. It's just like broken glass. Why do you think the example of broken glass is given?
Well, it could look like a gem, couldn't it?
Yeah, the broken glass is shiny, so it's attractive, isn't it? Glass is reflecting the sun, so it glitters and it's very attractive. So material things are like that. We're attracted by them. We're attracted by them. But remember, this is broken glass. So yeah, you're attracted to it. It's very glittery, it's very shiny. But what's another feature of broken glass?
It looks like a diamond, a jewel, an expensive jewel.
Yeah, it glitters like a jewel. Okay, yeah, that's the glass part. But what about the broken part?
Well, it can cut you.
Yeah, if you touch it, you try, oh, that glass looks very attractive. And then you grab it, and then what happens? You get cut. So that's the thing. This material energy, it attracts us. It has a glitter. It has an attractiveness. But then as soon as you become attached to it, as soon as you become attracted to it and attached to it and go for it, then immediately you suffer like you do if you grab some broken glass. But spiritual things and the Lord are like a jewel, and they're also attracting us, but it's not broken, so there's no suffering there in that relationship. It's a transcendental, eternal, beautiful relationship. That's everything in the material world. Remember, at a certain point, it's going to be cut off. Even if you do find a nice relationship with something, but in due course of time, it's cut off. And the material world is compared to an upside down tree. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it's called the Yoga of the Supreme Person. And that chapter 15, it starts off with an analogy of the material world to being an upside down tree. Why do you think the material world would be compared to an upside down tree? Any ideas?
Reflection of the spiritual world.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well done, Bhakti Mala. It's a reflection of the spiritual world. So the spiritual world is the right way up. So, but this material world is a reflection, a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Where can you see an upside down tree? Has anyone seen an upside down tree before? You all have, but you might not remember where you've seen it.
In the water.
Ah, very good. Bhakti Mala's on a roll today. In the water. So you'll have a tree growing on the bank, right, on the river bank. And that tree is reflected onto the water. It looks like there's an upside down. So, but the very fact that there's a reflection of the tree indicates there must be a real tree. You get that? Because if you see the reflection, that indicates there must be a real tree. So the very fact that there is a material world indicates that there is, which is a temporary reflection, indicates that there must be the original somewhere. The original must exist, the spiritual. And then why? Okay, so now I get why it's upside down, but then why the tree? Why compare the material world to a tree? What happens to most trees?
Die.
Chop.
You get chopped down.
They get chopped down. So that's the nature of the material world, that everything's temporary here. That everything's temporary here. And also why a tree is because we have to learn the art of how to cut off our relationship with the material world. Do you get that? We have to learn the art of how to cut off, just like you cut a tree. You have to cut off your relationship with the material world, just like you cut off the tree. So it means we have to learn detachment. Part of the process of yoga is to learn detachment from the material world. Detachment from the material world. That's very important. So we have to cut off from this materialistic life and this materialistic world, and then automatically we can enter more into the spiritual world. If we're very attached to the material world, obviously, how are you going to be attached to the spiritual world and to Krishna? It's going to be very difficult. You can't, like we've talked before, if you're going to put your front foot forward, you have to lift your back foot off the ground. You can't have a foot in both worlds. You've got to make a choice. You want to stay in the material world? Okay, well, you can't be in the spiritual world. Or do you want to be in the spiritual world? Okay, but then you can't be in the material world. You can't have both. No, I like the material world and I like the spiritual world. I mean, you might say that, but I mean, practically, you've got to make a choice somewhere down the line.
You want Krishna or his creation?
Yeah, you want Krishna or his creation. Yeah, very good.
You can't get both.
You can't have both. Yeah, you can't have both. No. And that's love. That's love. You know, that if you love someone, and then you should be exclusively devoted to them. You can't say, I have. You can't tell your wife, you're my wife on Monday, and then I have another wife on Tuesday, and I have another wife on Wednesday, and another wife on Thursday. She's not going to be very impressed.
Some religion is allowed, actually.
I know, but it's probably not so pleasing. No. Not so pleasing for the
lucky
wife.
To maintain one, forget about four.
Yeah, I mean, maintaining is obviously more difficult, but you know, love means like that, exclusively devoted. And Krishna's amazing, isn't it? I mean, Krishna had 16,108 wives, and you think, well, that wouldn't have been very good for the wives. But Krishna, he's so wonderful that he expanded himself to be with every single wife at the same time. So every wife was thinking, oh, Krishna is just with me. How wonderful Krishna is. that he can exclusively devote himself to unlimited souls, and that's his omnipotency. And even when he was doing the Rasa Leela dance, then every girl was thinking, oh, Krishna's just dancing with me. No, they couldn't see that there's Krishna dancing with every other girl too. But that was the fact, that Krishna was dancing with every gopi, but each gopi could only see the Krishna that was dancing with her. And every devotee feels special. Every devotee feels special. So Krishna has that ability to make everyone feel special. But we're not God. We can't do that. We just have to focus on one person. Like one time my spiritual master told me that everyone's servant is no one's servant. There's an old saying like that. Everyone's servant is no one's servant. Does that make sense?
Can you explain it a little bit more?
Okay, I'll tell you the context. We were visiting a temple in Los Angeles in America, and I'd come there as a servant of my spiritual master. And this was a festival day, and there was thousands of people around, and they were serving out a big feast. There was so many people that it was not enough to fit them in the temple. So they blocked off the road. They blocked off the road, and they served the feast on the road. They served the feast on the road. It's called Watsika Avenue. So they have permission from the council that one day in the year to block off Watsika Avenue. So they serve these thousands of people on Watsika Avenue on the road. They're all sitting down on the road, and the devotees serve them all prasadam there. And it's very blissful. It's very wonderful, and I really enjoy serving prasadam. So somehow that day I was thinking, I want to serve everyone. So I was going around and serving prasadam to the people. And so my going around and serving everyone, what do you think that did to my service to my for my spiritual master?
Was that service to him as well? Indirectly.
Maybe indirectly, but what about his direct service? How would that have affected his direct service? Bhaktimal is going to say. I was so busy serving others, I wasn't serving him.
Serving him, yeah.
And no one got very focused service, because obviously it's just, for one moment I'm serving that one, and then one moment this one, and then one moment that one, and no one's getting a lot of service. And so no one got really well served. And the one person that it was my duty to serve, I wasn't serving them. And then when I finally came back to down to earth and came to remember that actually I'm supposed to be serving my spiritual master, he when I came back to him, he wasn't angry, but he said, everyone's servant is no one's servant. And then I got the idea like that. So now we have to focus. We focus on serving one person. Of course, if that one person that we're serving says to us, go out and spread Krishna conscious everywhere, distribute books everywhere, distribute prasadam everywhere, go chant Hare Krishna every town and village, then that is serving him. Because that's his instruction. And that's mentioned here in this purport. And this is the way that we control the mind. How do we control the mind? Practically. We've talked about in the past sessions about how the mind is so hard to control. And Arjuna had said later on in this chapter, he says the mind is like the wind. How do you control the wind? But here in this purport, Prabhupada gives us the answer to how do we control the mind. What's that? Wow, the moon, the full moon has just come up. It's just, I thought I saw this bright light coming through the window, and what can be out there so bright? Is the moon. Yeah. So sorry, I got distracted. So can't focus. See the mind. See the mind is such a rascal. It gets distracted so easily. Through the eyes, like isn't it? I just caught a glance of something with my eyes, and immediately the mind is like zoom, gone away. So that's the mind for you. See, I've just proven my point. The mind is difficult to control. So, but what's the solution here?
Just engage in the service of Krishna. That's all he can do. He cannot control the mind. In Arjuna says, he can control the wind, but he can't control the mind.
Yeah.
So just busy yourself in serving Krishna's service, engage in there, and then mind will automatically get controlled. If it's like sitting there, it's like a monkey brain. It's definitely gonna be thinking of that.
Yeah.
Why don't you engage service in Krishna consciousness?
And so practically, what are we going to focus on to be in Krishna consciousness? Prabhupada explains here. One sentence says, the constitutional position of the living entity, this is in the purport we just read, the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. So there you have it. So that's how we control the mind. And that's our constitutional position, is to carry out the order of a superior. So we are the servant. That's our constitutional position. We're the servant. So when the superior, who's the superior? God is the superior. So when God gives the order as the master, we have to carry out the master's order. We're the servant. We're the servant, so we carry out the master's order. And then later on he says, real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. So once again, following his dictation, that means the same thing, carrying out the order. So you're carrying out the order of God, who is the superior. So when it says the order is superior, who's superior? It means, in this case, God is the superior. He's the most superior person. Of course, our Father is superior to us. Our spiritual master is superior to us. Our boss is superior to us. The Prime Minister is superior to us. The demigods are superior to us. There's so many superiors, but who is the ultimate superior? The ultimate superior is God. And who is God? God is the one that's superior to everyone else. He's superior to the demigods. He's superior to the sages. He's superior to the guru, superior to the father. He's superior to your boss, everyone like that. So, and he's also within our heart as Paramatma. So we have to follow his dictation. Follow his dictation. And dictation means like his orders. So basically that's the same principle. That this is how we control the mind. Follow the orders of God. And where is God, as mentioned here? God is also within our heart. So how are we going to hear him? Has anyone ever heard God in their heart?
Heartbeat. Is that the beat? You can hear that. And that's when the beat stops. And then that's it. That's the God.
Quite. That's not his orders going boom, boom, boom. That's the heart as the physical organ. But I mean, the Paramatma is located in the heart region, yes. But
he's the one beating that. Once he stops beating, see you later.
True. Yeah, he's the one that gives energy for the heart to beat. But his orders are something separate to that. And the thing is that we're not going to be able to hear what he's trying to tell us, his orders, until we, as is mentioned here, take to Krishna consciousness and surrender, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. So first we have to become Krishna conscious and surrender, then we'll be able to hear his orders. So if we go to the 10th chapter, the 10th verse. So 10th chapter, text 10.
10:10.
10:10. Easy to remember, 10:10. Don't forget.
Tintin is the comic.
Okay.
You know the Tintin?
Oh, Tintin, yes. Yeah, Tintin. This is not Tintin, this is 10:10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spelling mistake. I'm Indian.
No, that's okay. So,
Who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give understanding by which they can come to me.
yeah. So this is how we can get that dictation, how we can receive the dictation or the orders from God in our heart. If we constantly serve him with love. So this is Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga or devotional service, is this process of constantly being devoted or serving him with love. So there's 2 points here. Constantly means like every day. I mean, don't feel bad if you can't be serving him 24 hours, because that'd be a bit difficult, wouldn't it? If constantly meant serving him 24 hours, we might feel a bit depressed. Well, I can't, that's not really practical. I can't really do that. How am I going to, I can't chant Hare Krishna 24 hours. I can't read Bhagavad Gita 24 hours. I can't be with the devotees 24 hours. So, I'm not going to be able to do this. But, so when it's saying this constantly, is for us in the beginning, what it refers to is every day. You should be serving him every day. And can you manage that?
Of course.
Of course, we
Yeah.
can. That's not too hard. I mean, if the rule was you have to be serving him 24/7, I think we'd pretty much all give up. If it was 24/7 or nothing, we'd pretty much do nothing. But it's not 24/7 or nothing. You just start with constantly, meaning every day, at least sometime every day, serving him every day, so we spend, isn't it, like chanting 16 rounds, maybe that's an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours every day doing that, or maybe we can read Bhagavad Gita for half an hour every day, and we take prasadam every day, once, twice, or 3 times, whatever, every day. So like that, we're serving him every day. And so if we do that, and with some love, we try to do it with love, and it's not just a business kind of exchange. We're trying to do it with some love. Then
What
what he
about like
says,
you can do that like serving there while you even cooking, or it's just chanting while you're having a shower or driving, or
yeah. So as we go along, we want to increase the amount of time that we're thinking about him and remembering him and serving him. In the beginning, it'll be less, and as you become more advanced, it's going to become more. But the main thing is it should be every day, and then how much time every day, that will increase, hopefully, as time goes on. Like Prabhupada said, that he said, I gave you the instruction to chant a minimum of 16 rounds every day. That's not maximum. It's not that you can't chant more than 16, but don't chant less. So the idea is in the beginning it'll be the minimum. You'll do the minimum, and in the very beginning it might even be less than that. It might be 1 round a day, and then you build up to 4 rounds a day after a while, and then 8 rounds a day after a while, and then 16 rounds a day after a while, and then like that. So, but then you can keep going more. if you want. You know, sometimes you can do 20 rounds a day, or 25, or 64.
Ekadashi, we have to do more?
Well, I mean, it's not have to.
I mean,
No,
it's what Prabhupada mentioned.
nothing is have to, but it's recommended. It's recommended because that's the whole purpose of Ekadashi, that you spend less time doing bodily activities and more time doing
chanting.
spiritual activities. That's why we want to reduce our eating and just eat simple food on Ekadashi and avoid grains and things, and have more time for chanting, more time for reading. That's the idea. And also, normally you don't get very good results from material activities on Ekadashi. Normally the results are, I personally experienced some bad things happening on Ekadashi. It's materially speaking, it's not a very good day. Spiritually, it's a brilliant day. Anything spiritual activities you do on Ekadashi, you get a brilliant result. But any materialistic things you do on Ekadashi, often it doesn't work out very well. It's not a very good day for that kind of stuff. So if that's the idea there. And so if we do serve him with some love every day, then what he's saying is that he'll give us some understanding how we can come to him. And that's as the super soul in the heart, he'll give us guidance in our heart. He'll give us guidance, give us direction from within our heart. And he doesn't give that direction to everyone, but he gives it to those persons that are following this, that are serving him every day with some love. So some people, and you've probably heard it too, some people say, oh, God talks to me. Have you ever heard anyone say that to you before? I'm sure I'm not the only one. You've never talked with a Christian, especially. They say God talks to me. Well, I have, and what they normally, and they say that God talks to me, but then you can tell that that's probably not really the case, because generally those people are not serving God every day, and you can tell by some of their behavior is not very good, like they might be eating meat and drinking alcohol and so forth, and this is not the criteria for God speaking to you. You have to actually be living a very pure lifestyle for God to be speaking to you. Of course, God's in the heart of everyone. He's even within the dog and the pig and everywhere, but they're not conscious of him. But if we're actually going to become conscious of him in the heart, then we actually have to be quite pure. And this is part of the criteria given here of serving him with love every day. And if we're not doing that, then he won't be speaking to us. He won't be speaking to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is what we need to come to, this point where we can hear the instructions coming from God in order to get free from the mind. Because remember, that's what we're talking about, is the mind, how to control the mind. If we really want to control the mind, we need to be taking instructions from God. Otherwise, it's not going to be possible to control the mind. So we're looking at one way we can hear from God is within our heart. But what other ways? There's more to it than that also. We can hear instructions from God from within our heart, the Paramatma. How else can we hear from God? Is that the only way you can get instructions from God, is from within your heart?
No, you can get it like from God's representative on the earth.
Yeah, so you can get it from God's representative, the spiritual master.
Which is your spiritual master.
And that's a lot easier, right, than getting it from God in your heart. I think you'll get instructions coming from God through the spiritual master a long time before you'll be getting it from God within your heart, and also from Bhagavad Gita, right? That's instructions coming from God. Bhagavad Gita means the words of God, the song of God. Gita means song, and Bhagavad means of God. You know, so this is the words of God, and as it is, Prabhupada has given us without any interpretation the instructions from God. So anyone can just take the Bhagavad Gita and immediately you have instructions coming from God. Or if you hear from the teacher, the guru, and the teacher is saying the same things that's in the book, whatever the God is saying in the book, we're all saying the same thing. So there's no difference there. And also the same thing you can get when you're pure of heart, you can get from God within your heart. Is going to be the same instructions coming from God. So like there's three different ways you can get it from, with instructions, God's instructions from within your heart, God's instructions from the spiritual teacher, and God's instructions from God himself, like in the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. And of course, if you were on the planet 5,000 years ago, you could directly get instructions from Krishna, like Arjuna did. Or if you were on the planet 500 years ago, you could have directly got instructions from Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya can give you direct instructions, but there's no difference.
If you
right
even
now.
50 years ago, you will get the instruction from Prabhupada.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not God, but
He's not God, but representative.
God, yeah, which is no difference. Like I say, there's no difference whether you get the instructions from the representative or you get it from God himself. The representative is saying the same thing, so there's no real difference there. So we're very fortunate. So there's so much instructions we are coming from the Lord that we have access to, and that can help us. That is actually the only way to help us to get control over the mind. Otherwise, we're always going to be victim of the mind. And that's what it's saying in this purport. If you're under the control of mind, what does that mean? What does it mention?
Enemy.
Have a look at the purport
Enemy.
today.
If you're under control, you are in the enemy.
Yes.
God become enemy.
And there's actually many enemies that are assaulting us once we come under the control of the mind. The mind has many, they're called whips. They're called whips of the mind. And there's some of them are mentioned here that we come under the influence of in the purport that we're reading today. And it says here, as long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, which means greed, illusion, and the other ones, the madness, pride. So these are different enemies that are degrading us, pulling us down, that are different forces of the mind. So this is all different part of a package deal. If you have an uncontrolled mind, then also there'll be lust, also there'll be greed, there'll be anger, there'll be envy. Yeah, envy is a big one. Envy and pride and illusion. These are called whips of the mind. So we're constantly being whipped by these things, influenced by lust, influenced by greed, by anger. And these things are very degrading. They cause us to suffer and also go down lower and lower into material existence. And let's just see what bad effect this uncontrolled mind has. We'll just look at the 16th chapter. Let's look at the 16th chapter. Let's try to pin it down where it is. Yeah, 21. 16th chapter, text 21. Bob, you want to read that? Have you got it?
Yep. There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul.
Yeah. Reading this, we might think, oh, this sounds like Christianity. It's talking about hell. Actually, in the Vedas, there are many hells. There's not just one. I mean, sort of the understanding Christianity is very basic. So, I mean, they just talk about hell. But in the Vedas, there's a lot more detail there. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a lot of detail. There's I think, about 26 different hells, or even more than that. So there's different kind of basically miserable places. So where there's a lot of suffering going on, there's many places. So according to whatever sinful activity or crime is committed in the human form of life, depending on what you do, then there'll be a different kind of punishment. And the idea is, it's not just inflicting suffering on you for the sake of it, because there's some people in the universe that like you to suffer. It's not like that. But just like if you do a crime in human society, you might go to jail. And the idea is the punishment is meant to correct your bad mentality that caused you to do the crime and be there. So the idea is to correct that sinful mentality. So the punishment is meant to correct that. So there'll be different kinds of punishment to correct the different sinful activities. So that's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam in great detail in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is very destructive if the mind is out of control. Someone's going to say something? No? Okay. So this is very destructive. If the mind gets out of control, then we get influenced by these things like lust, greed, and anger, and it just degrades us further and further. But a difference between the Vedic idea of hell and the Christian idea of hell, the Christians sort of present it as eternal. That's eternal damnation. Whereas the Vedas doesn't say that. It's just temporary. It's just temporary. See, karma, good or bad, is just temporary. If you do good karma, you go to heaven. Not forever. You go to heaven for 10,000 years. And then you come back down to earth. Also, if you do some sinful things, you may go down to hell. But it's also temporary. Not even 10,000 years, luckily. Just for a short period of time. Once the punishment is there, then you come back up to earth again. But usually in a lower species of life. So after being in hell, generally you wouldn't be getting another human form of life, depending on whatever your crime was, whether it was animal killing or illicit sex or intoxication or whatever. You'll end up with a lower form, whether it be in the form of a tree, or you'll take birth after being in hell as an animal or as a fish or a bird or whatever like that. So you do in a human form of life, you do sinful activity, means an uncontrolled mind, uncontrolled lust, uncontrolled greed, uncontrolled anger, uncontrolled envy, whatever. Then you go to some punishment in a hellish place, a lower planet. So the hellish planets are lower down in the universe. So they're physical places. They're physical, like this Earth planet, right? This is in the middle of the universe. There's some planets are higher up in the universe, like heaven, and there's more material enjoyment there. And in the lower planets, there's some more physical suffering there. So then after being there for a short time, and one's received the punishment, and one's consciousness is lowered down, then one's put into a lower species of life, like I said, animals or birds. Or
8,400,000.
Yeah, that's how you end up in those different ones, this is how you could go down from the human form. You can't go straight from a human body. The soul can't go straight from a human body into the body of a pig, for example. With the consciousness you have now, how could you function in the body of a pig, for example? For example, you're used to eating a particular type of food, right? Like rice and curry and salad and roast potatoes and halava or whatever. Is that what a pig eats?
But then
No, it's not. So how are you going to become happy to eat what a pig eats? Then your consciousness has to be lowered. So, for example, if a human done some sinful activities here, and like he just eats all rubbish stuff, then he may go in that hellish punishment, and he'll be force-fed all that abominable stuff that a pig eats. He'll be force-fed all that rotten food there in a hellish place. And then when he's got used to it, when that soul has got used to, when the mind of that conditioned soul has got used to eating all that rotten old food and adjusted to it and happy to eat it, then he's ready. Then he's ready to get his new body, the body of a pig. So before the soul enters into a particular body, there has to be an adjustment to the consciousness so that he's able to exist in that particular body.
Is it the cow is the last species that after that will become a birth as a human?
If in the species going up,
yeah,
then there's three species that lead into the human life. One is cow, the other is a monkey, and the other one is a tiger. So it's mentioned, and that relates to the three modes. So you got mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So in the mode of goodness is the cow, mode of passion is the mode of passion would be the tiger, and the mode of ignorance will be the monkey. So depending on which particular mode that conditioned soul is in.
Is there some places hell on the earth as well? Some of the places that you be thinking like people live in Africa, or somebody like living in the like a hellish life, like
no, it's true. So you do have physical. When it's mentioned hell, it's talking about places of punishment, just like a prison is on earth. So they're like real prison kind of places. But even within this earth, like we do have prisons on earth, which obviously it's kind of hellish. But even outside of the prisons, some people have very miserable lives. So their experience is it's a kind of punishment. It's kind of hellish. And that's due not to just by chance or something like that, but it's due to their own past karma. Like, I'll give you an example. It said if someone has killed a brahmana in their last life, means like a priest or a brahmana, a religious person, if they've killed a religious person, then they may take birth in a desert. Take birth in a desert. So it's not by chance that someone's born in Ethiopia or Sudan or Uganda or something in the middle of a civil war and there's no food and no water and everything like that. I mean, it's a hard one, but ultimately, we all have to take responsibility for whatever our experiences are, because we're our own, like we're saying here, we're our own friend or we're our own enemy. So if we let our mind go out of control, then it becomes our enemy and it degrades us into these horrible situations, and we have to suffer the consequences. So we're actually getting the result of our own past misdeeds. And you'll also get the result of your past good deeds. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, not everyone does all bad, or not everyone does all good. Normally it's a mixed bag. You do some good things, some bad things, and you're going to get the result of both. Maybe first you might get the reactions of the good things you did, and then you might get in another births you might get the results of the bad things you did, or vice versa.
In a nutshell, you're not going to find out. Never will. It's like whatever the karma we do or past, I think only Krishna knows.
Yeah, only he knows that. And we don't try to find out all these things.
We haven't got that much brain, I guess.
No, there's no point. But what we should know with our brain is that, do we want to get entangled in all of that? up and down, happiness, then for a short time, suffering for a short time.
This life
up
will
and
go
down.
like that,
Yeah.
but whatever you do to make the next life better, that's all.
Yeah, we should make the next life better.
Next life
Forget
better.
about the
So whatever we
past.
do now, yeah, so
Yeah.
this will go,
Yeah.
I guess, 40, 50 years going, another 20, 30 years, and see you later. But at least
Yeah.
we do to make the next life better.
Yeah. So the idea why we're talking about this, why if we don't want to understand all the nitty-gritty of where we've come from and all this kind of
We're
stuff.
not going to find out. We don't have
No,
it.
we're not going to find out.
No way.
But so then why are we talking about it? Because we realize this cycle of up and down, happiness and suffering, going up and experiencing happiness, going down, experiencing suffering, is not a good system. Do we want to continue it anymore? No, if we're intelligent. I don't want to go to heaven for a short time, then come down, then go to hell for a short time, then take birth as a pig, as a donkey, as a whatever, a fish, a bird, a tree, whatever. I don't want to go through that birth, old age, disease, and death. No, so I have to get a control of my mind, because my mind is causing all of this. It's because of my uncontrolled mind is causing me to go up and down. So then, okay, I want to get free from this crazy mind taking me all over the universe. So what's the solution?
Just surrender to Krishna.
God.
That's it.
I have to surrender to Krishna and follow her. And surrender to Krishna means you have to do what he wants, and then like that, what's the ultimate conclusion from Bhagavad Gita? That Arjuna is agreed to follow the dictation of Krishna. Remember in the beginning, Arjuna said, I don't want to fight. And Krishna said, Arjuna, you should fight. And Arjuna said, no. But at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna still had the same opinion. I want you to fight. But what was Arjuna's opinion at the end?
It's a shortest way. Like if me and my dad, like if Krishna will just give it a one slap to Arjuna, just go and fight. That's it. Easy. Like whether my dad did that.
Yeah, by force. But Krishna's not like that to force us to follow.
He can if he wants to.
Of course he can, but then where is this what we've been talking about? Where's this love? Where we're saying constantly serving me with love. Then there's no love. It's, if there's force, it means you've lost the love part.
Yeah.
Do you love to pay taxes? Does anyone love to pay taxes? No, you're forced to pay taxes. There's no love. There's no question of love.
But then it's written there, like the king is a Krishna's representative, and then if you take in the king's taxes, it means you take the Krishna's money. You gotta pay the taxes because king is a Krishna's representative. Like nowadays, is the prime minister or ATO or taxation department.
Yeah.
So we if you're stealing Krishna's money, you got no chance.
True. But yeah, Krishna's not going to force us to follow his instructions because he wants us to develop love for him. So it has to be voluntary. But Krishna's giving us all the knowledge so we can see that, if we do surrender to the mind, that it's just going to lead us to so much suffering. So better we surrender to Krishna, because we have to surrender. That's another thing we should realize. You say, I'm not going to surrender to God. I want to be free. I don't want to have to follow Krishna's instructions. I don't follow anyone's instructions. But is that true?
No,
someone that doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in God, they're not religious.
Those who are like that, people like that, they have to do everything by themselves. And those who are surrender, 50-70% job done. Rest 20% we can manage. The person who doesn't, he has to do all 100% by himself.
True,
which he can't do it.
Fair. Yeah, but this is another point. The other point is that, okay, you don't want to follow God's instructions, but does that mean you're free, that you don't have to follow instructions from anyone?
No, he has to follow the instruction, like, for the, it's by the nature he has to die. He's got to be in the process. He can't be live forever or things like that. The nature's way.
Okay. Yeah. But even during his life,
I mean, so he be,
what do you think? Like, let's hear a bit from Bob and Bhakti Mala. So
you're always following somebody. You're always under someone's control or following someone's directions, or whether it's the government or
whether it's you follow the dictations of your boss, you follow the dictations of your parents, you follow the dictations of the prime minister, isn't it? Like now they've got another lockdown happening in Wellington at the moment because someone from Australia went to Wellington for a few days, and then when they came back to Australia, they were found to be positive with COVID. So now all the Kiwis there, especially in Wellington, are freaking out. That's where the government is. So they have locked it down for a few days there. So, and now everyone has to follow that. You have to follow the dictation of the government. But what about if your tongue dictates to you, I want to taste some flesh or some liquor, then what happens?
Depends if you are in the control of mind or mind in control of you.
Hey, but for most people, what's happening?
They are under the control of mind.
Completely under the control.
Yeah, they go and eat fish.
They're going to run to the fish and chip shop, or they're going to run to the liquor shop, and they're going to line up at the liquor shop.
98% people like that in the world.
Yeah, so they're fully under the control of their mind and senses, or the dictations of the genitals. They have to get sex one way or another, or, fill up the belly one way or another.
Or the money.
Whatever food, whatever junk food.
Either way, I've got to be rich.
Yeah, or the dictations of greed, avarice, right? Greed, right? They're just being dictated to make more money. Their mind is telling them, you need more money, more money, more money, more money. Like I told you, there was one reporter asked the richest man in the world many years ago, it was John Paul Getty, what do you think about when you're all alone? What did he say? I think about how to make more money. So what does that mean? He's being dictated to by his mind, by the greed in his mind. Get more money, get more money, get more money. So it's not a matter of, are we going to be dictated to or not? Are we going to follow instructions or not? That's not a question. You understand? It's not a question. Are you going to follow instructions or not? Are you going to, become submissive to or subordinate to some master or not? That's not the question. Everyone has to follow instructions, either from God or from God's Maya, God's illusory energy in the form of the mind and the false ego and the senses and these enemies like lust, greed, anger, envy, pride, whatever. So, okay, you don't want to surrender to God? Okay, then surrender to lust. You don't want to surrender to God? Okay, surrender to greed. You don't want to follow Krishna? Okay, follow anger. You don't want to follow Krishna's instructions? Follow the instructions of envy and pride. So you're going to be controlled by pride, controlled by envy, so many things. So if you understand in that way, then the question is, okay, I can't avoid following instructions. I can't avoid surrendering. So then the next question is, what's the next question is? Once we realize we can't avoid surrendering, I have to surrender either to my mind or to God. So then what's the next thing logically you'd think? You got two choices, right?
What's the better way to surrender?
So which is the better? Am I going to be more happy if I surrender to my mind with lust, greed, envy, anger? Or am I going to be more happy if I surrender to Krishna?
Rock and roll and drugs?
Yeah, sex, drugs, rock and roll, eat, drink and be merry. That's one side. You can surrender to that. Or you surrender to Krishna. So then that's the choice that we have, It's not a choice whether you surrender or not. You have to surrender. but it's just a choice of who you're going to surrender to.
Why are you?
You know, and obviously, you know, let's have a look at some examples of people that are surrendered to God. Okay, Arjuna surrendered to God. Was he happy or was he on Prozac?
Oh,
Antidepressant.
he was in.
He's happy.
Yeah, of course.
You know, what was Hanuman? Hanuman, was he suffering from depression and morose and stress and anxiety, or was he happy?
Right. Yeah.
Happy. Okay, Prabhupada, was he depressed and anxiety and fearful and everything, or was he happy?
Happy.
Okay, so you gotta look at all these things. So, and you look at people that are under the control of their mind, they're not happy, and people that are under the control of Krishna, following his instructions, and they're happy. So then we have to make the choice, you know, with that full knowledge. Of course, we're all coming from that point where we have been surrendered to our mind. We have been under control of our mind, not only this life, but many lifetimes. So we've got to be patient with ourselves and be patient with each other. It's going to take some time because we've had so much faith in our wicked masters. The scriptures call them wicked masters, our lust, greed, anger, so forth, and they're very wicked masters, and they make us do horrible things. These wicked masters, like lust and greed and anger, and they never give us any rest, any break, and they're never satisfied. Isn't it like even like that man? He was so rich, but greed is never giving him a break. Not that, oh, well done, you've made so much money, I won't make you greedy anymore. That's it for now. No, it's never lets
more
us go.
greedy.
More, it's never satisfied. That's another problem with these materialistic masters of the mind, that they're never satisfied. Doesn't matter how much you serve the tongue and the genitals and how much sex, how much food, how much money, they're never satisfied, never happy. Just want more and more and more. So that's on one side, you know, we're coming from that. So we've been victims of the mind for so long. So we have to be patient and with ourselves also, realizing that, you know, it's not necessarily we're going to get free from that in 1 week or 1 month. Maybe, but maybe not also. We have to be prepared to stick with it, and we're trying to take up following Krishna's instructions. And many times the mind doesn't like it. Isn't it? There's one cartoon where the wife is telling the husband, chant, chant, chant. And the husband says, can't. Because the mind is so rebellious, isn't it? Have you noticed that sometimes even when you want to take up chanting, that the mind comes up with so many things? I'm too tired. Or, I've got to watch my TV program, or, I need to go back to bed, or, you know, I've got to go to work, or, you know, so many excuses.
I think it depends on your association as well.
Yeah, that will definitely be a big factor. Yep.
Because if you associate with the people, because yesterday I had got a friend came, he also got a Gloria jeans, and he come and have some takeaway, and he was just keep talking about his businesses and like he opened another business and the property. I was trying to sell him a Bhagavad Gita. I said, listen, mate, you know, when the time is up, it does not matter what you have. And then look at that, you know, 4 kind of people coming in the spiritual Krishna consciousness, 7 for 16 of 7 chapter. So and then he's got no interest whatsoever. And I know him since 2012. We used to be in the regional meeting, and then I just thinking I'm talking to brick wall. And I was just so shocked.
So you could see that so much under the dictation of the mind. You can see that so much under dictation.
And today I seen the youngest devotee came to Bhakti Tree. His age is only 21. Last year he's initiated from Radha Govind Maharaj. He's Aussie. He's Braj Manda's god brother. What a life. Beautiful. In the 21, he born in the devotee family. His parents are devotees as well. It's so great.
Mm.
I have to get
So you-
going, Abhay Prabhu, but thank you so much for today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
See you,
Lovely to
Mahala.
see you.
And see you soon. Hare
See you
Krishna.
soon. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Gianty just said something down below. Do you want to have a talk with her, Bob?
Mate, would you ask if it could be next week, please?
Next week, sure. Yeah, that'll be no
Please.
problem.
Yep.
Okay, you won't be here, but you can have a talk with them from. You can just talk up. Yeah. Why don't you just talk to him from Skype there afterwards at 6:30? You can do that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she'll be in Auckland next week, but you can have a chat with her through Skype after we meet up, and you can talk with her.
All right, that'd be lovely.
If it works for you.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all right. So take care.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And listen, thank you so much again, Abhay.
Pleasure. You're welcome. Welcome.